Okay, hello, how's it going? I recently watched 2001 A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick from 1968. It's good. I think it has some flaws. I think overall it's interesting. There's parts I really like and things that aren't bad so much, but I think could improve. That it's not, to me, it's not like this ingenious masterpiece. It is unique though and thought provoking. So what I want to start with is some of the visuals are great. Just the special effects, the like the slow as things are just moving in space. I think it looks phenomenal. Like the background, the stars. It looks real. It looks like you're actually out there in space, and and it's realistic. You don't have the sounds of things like just silently moving. I guess they use models, and it looks very smooth. The movie has a lot of examples of Newton's first law of motion, which is that an object, will remain in motion unless acted upon by force. Basically, it's a little counterintuitive. I think when you're a kid or as you grow up, I'm gonna fix my hair. I need a haircut. As if you throw a ball, you expect it to stop fairly quickly, or if you throw it up, it comes back down and hits the ground. So we tend to, if anything, you might form a theory that things tend to lose energy gradually. They gradually slow down. But the idea is that, in fact, things will just keep going. It's the natural state is for things to keep moving. It's only when they hit other things, or when there's friction, or gravity, some force, that they change direction or slow down. But yeah, so you see a lot of shots of like a body floating and just spinning constantly and drifting. A lot of drifting. And it's realistic. I like that stuff. The use of classical music is kind of interesting. In a way, I'm not a huge fan because I really like original music. I like music having, or any piece of art having a context that it was written for and made for. So I don't like casually just taking that and using it. I think it's more impressive. So for example, when Steven Spielberg works with John Williams, and John Williams writes brilliant, beautiful music for every movie, and each of them has its own themes and own music, its own unique stuff. If it's part of a series, there's repetition or references, common threads. But it's very creative. What Tarantino does when he gets different songs, popular songs, that's kind of cool as well. There's some creativity to that. Like he's a bit of a DJ or something, making mixtapes for his movies. But I don't think it's as impressive. I don't. And with 2001, it is in a way inspired, like the Blue Danube. I think that was already a famous song. Bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum dum bum 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 ba dum bum 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 bum. I can't really hum it, but it kind of does suit, because hearing that music makes me think of a rich group of people dancing, men and women dressed up in frocks with with monocles and jewelry, and dukes and duchesses, I don't know, whatever, and just dancing around, a bit like Cinderella or something, that kind of thing. So the idea of then taking it and just having these spaceships just, because they are often turning and often the women will spin in dancing. It is kind of funny. And it does feel appropriate. It's quite graceful and delicate, that sort of thing. And the music also sprach Zarathustra or whatever, or thus spoke Zarathustra. I think that apparently the symbol, I was reading on IMDb, of kind of like the sun and the moon, the crescent moon, and maybe a disc, or not a disc, like a monolith in between, something. That symbol is associated with sort of some weird religion relating to Zarathustra or something ages ago. So there's some interesting parallels. I don't think it's random that he picked that music. But boom, 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 and then later on, there's a really hilarious version on YouTube where they play it really badly, but it sounds so epic, and like they're really getting into it, and it just falls apart completely. It's one of the funniest things I've heard. But it's an interesting concept. This monolith it seems to be a bit of a metaphor. I think Roger Ebert's review, he's done a couple of reviews. He liked it in 1968. A lot of people walked out at the time, and but he's got an interesting interpretation. The monolith kind of represents this clearly artificial thing that it's been made, and it kind of spurs the little ape-like things into, I guess, the precursors to modern humans, into like using tools and realizing they can do that. The thing is, in terms of evolution, you don't need that. You don't need to see a monolith. Even birds use tools to some degree. Like some of them will drop a rock on a nut to try to break it, or there's various animals that use, I mean, even maybe shells you could count as using tools. But it's an interesting concept because I think it is significant. I think with human evolution, my theory is, in fact, I noticed with the apes, their hands were human, clearly human in terms of the thumbs. Apes have a smaller thumb, I feel like. We have opposable thumbs, which I would say human beings are one of the most, we're one of the most intelligent animals, or the most intelligent. I know there are stupid people, don't get me wrong, but still, we're more intelligent than any other animal or living thing that we're aware of. But we're also one of the most dexterous animals. We can manipulate things finely. We could tie shoelaces. How many animals can tie shoelaces? Even if you taught them for a long time. In terms of sounds, like our tongues and mouth, we're able to make, I think, quite a wide range of sounds. Of course, look, I mean, this depends what you're used to. We know what human sounds mean. We know we learn a language, but so you could argue, well, dogs also have a wide range. It just sounds like barking to us, and to them, we just sound like blah, 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 blah. It sounds like that to them. But no, I still think there's a wide range of sounds we can make. But my point is these three things at least, and maybe some other things, evolved in parallel. Like if you had a cow that was super smart, it wouldn't help much because it's got hooves. It can't manipulate the world. It can't communicate significantly. Intelligence is only useful if you could use it for something. And I think that's why human beings happen to be, it was like that opening in terms of evolution for this developing intelligence, because we can actually manipulate things with our hands. So I think definitely as intelligence grew, so did the opposable thumb and the ability to manipulate and the ability to speak and to communicate. So I think those all came in parallel. But yes, you could say definitely that time when we first started using tools, like that dexterity sort of breakthrough, that where intelligence just took off, like in a way that it had never happened before in the evolutionary history of the Earth. Like that is significant. So I can get the monolith being there. That's pretty cool. And of course, the origin of life is completely, or pretty mysterious. There are theories, but we don't know for sure what happened, but you could say that was also very significant. I have to get to some of the flaws with the movie, which I do think, I don't know if I'd call it pretentious. I think Stanley Kubrick has a lot of respect for his audiences. I think he's a really, what's the right word? He's a good filmmaker. He likes movies. But this movie, I think, is a bit self-indulgent, a bit longer than it needs to be. I would have preferred, have the stuff that's in it. It's beautiful. It's like there are shots that's like it could be a 30-second shot, fine. But you don't need to have a 10-minute sequence of lots of different 30-second shots where we get the idea earlier than that. That strikes me as, like not everyone wants to just sit there through all of that. I think it's a weakness. So there's parts where it's like, there's a breathing sound and there's a in the background just going constantly. And he's in the ship, the little pod that's moving around. He's trying to help his friend, and he's like, you see the dangling body in the middle gradually getting bigger. Like the whole time it drags on for minutes. It's like, it's entertaining to watch. I don't mind it, but part of it I was thinking, like, are we gonna get to something else interesting, get to some other idea or statement? It's a weakness. It doesn't need to go as long as it does. I think the stuff with the HAL 9000 is kind of interesting. It raises some interesting questions. I certainly think the movie is ahead of its time overall in terms of this is 1968. PCs, I don't think really existed, or at least maybe in a very primitive form. So the idea that there'd be this intelligent robot playing an important role in like some mission. I mean, this was right in the middle of the space race between the US and the USSR, 1968, the year before Americans landed on the moon, which did happen, by the way. It's amazing how many like flat earthers there are, and people who deny the moon landing. In fact, Interstellar also had a reference to that, this idea that the moon landings were faked. But I think it's someone called it the Elvis factor. I forget who it was, but I think it's very true that you get maybe about 10% or so of people think Elvis Presley is still alive. So you've got to adjust for that. Like, there's always going to be this small percentage that think any kind of ridiculous thing. So if you can get 85% of people agree on something, that's as high as you can get, like in terms of something reasonable. 85%, 90%, because there's always going to be that small percentage of idiots out there. But one thing I would say that's dated about it is some of the costumes and stuff. Like, you often get, when it comes to design, I find movies that are set either in the future or in the past, they actually say a lot more about the time that they were made than whatever they're trying to represent. So you find movies in the 60s about the future, they have a certain look which is very reflective of, not of the future, but of the 60s. And unfortunately, I don't think this movie escapes that. It's dated in terms of the fashion, in terms of the look of some of the spacesuits. I think the one the guy has, the sort of red or orangey one, when he's trying to deactivate HAL, I think that's pretty cool. And even that part, I think, drags out a bit. It's kind of interesting, the whole, open the pod bay doors, HAL. I'm afraid I can't do that. It's interesting. Like, was HAL programmed to go ahead with the mission, or did he become self-aware, and is he looking out for himself? It seems to be the first one, because I think, I just remember my parents sometimes having discussions where my mum would get annoyed, and I get annoyed as well, with like Word or some program, and like it's doing this thing, and then why is it doing? And my dad would often say it only does what it tells you to do. So calm down. What do you want it to do? What have you done? And my mum would get like, so I can relate to both sides, but that's the thing. Computers only do what you tell them to do, and I think that's a misconception people have, that somehow they just start developing like their own wants, their own whims. That doesn't happen. I think that part is maybe a little flawed. I like the story of like the Terminator movies, at least the first two, where the idea of Skynet kind of becoming self-aware and starting a nuclear war or something. It's interesting, but I don't think that kind of thing is particularly realistic. In any case, it's not realistic where you're talking about a specific program built for a specific purpose, like in this case on a spaceship. But it reminds me a bit of Aliens, where there's a bit of betrayal there, and you can have ulterior motives for certain characters, like they only care about money, or it's really just a bit like in Interstellar, there's Plan A, and Plan A was never meant to work. It was Plan B was the thing the whole time. But it's, getting lied to. I guess in this case, maybe it's like Hal's job is to do the mission no matter what, and one of his instructions is to kill the humans if they don't do things the right way. Now, of course, they might have programmed Hal to be like that without telling the humans. You could say that's unethical, but I mean, it's possible that they would do that. I don't like the ending so much. I don't like the stuff. It just kind of, it doesn't really explain what's going on. I don't know why he travels to Jupiter. I guess there was like a signal there. There's a monolith in the moon. It's kind of surreal, but there's a part also where a few of the astronauts are gathered near the monoliths on the moon, and then they start having like pain, and it just cuts to something else, and it's like, well, what was that? Did something happen? Did they die? Is that significant? It doesn't seem to be explained. I'm not a fan of that. Parts of it actually do feel a little bit like a horror. Like at the end, when he arrives, he sort of sees all these visions and it's not clear what's happening. It's a bit similar to the wormhole, maybe in Interstellar, this kind of transporting, because in that one there's a wormhole set up near Saturn, I think, and that's kind of weird. There's like, well, we don't know who it's from or what the purpose is, so we're kind of just going in. And it's a little bit like that. There's some interesting parallels. But again, it's kind of, those effects actually look really cool. They're kind of horizontal mainly, and then a think they're vertical, or maybe the other way around. Yeah, I think it's mostly vertical, and then later it's horizontal. They look cool because they're not. Parts of it remind me of like Tokyo, like bright city lights, like as if you were flying in a spaceship near Tokyo, just all these things flying past. Or parts of it are like, parts of it are a bit obvious though. They're just like, the Grand Canyon, but the colors have been manipulated a bit. But overall, the effects are pretty cool. But it's like still, it's not. I wouldn't call that genius. Like what does it mean? And then when he arrives, he's in like some rich kind of bedroom place that looks like a royal kind of room, or I don't know, upper class, just arbitrary. But then the ground is like these bright lights, and then he kind of looks and sees himself standing there, and he's older, and then the pod disappears. So I'm not sure what's going on. Is this some transformative experience? Is this just psychological within his mind? And then he sees another figure eating, and it's himself even older, I guess. And then that one, and now he's that one, and then he sees... It's kind of a pattern, but what does it mean? I don't really get it. And then some profound music again, and then the little fetus in a big circle kind of looking at the earth or something. I don't like the complete and utter ambiguity. You know, it's... Abstract art can be okay if you feel something, but I was just annoyed. I really was, because I did. Why not, like Interstellar, make it about something? It has an actual story, you know. You can have some mystery, you could have some thought-provoking ideas, but don't just make it completely ambiguous, or just have like a screen that's just white. That's the other thing that feels a little bit self-indulgent as well. The very start of the movie, there's like 2.5 3 minutes of just black screen with music. Music's interesting. I think it's Ligeti, kind of atonal, weird voice choral music. It's alright, I don't mind it. But do we need that just with the black screen? Maybe once, but then the intermission has a little bit of that as well. And then the ending, it plays like all of, I think, the Blue Danube, just with the black screen. Like, people have other things to do with their lives. Like, I can listen to that music unless there's a really profound reason for why it's been picked. Like, we don't need to go to that level. There was another scene. It's kind of like a board meeting, I guess, with people, and that I really do like the way Kubrick films things. He seems to really have a vision. If he picks, he just puts the camera in a place, and it's there for a very particular reason. It often looks cool, but still, you want to have a scene that means something. That scene, it kind of went on a bit. The guy was explaining things. It seemed very vague about the mission. He was like, if you have any suggestions, come let me know. There's actually one bit, I had German subtitles, and it said, part of what he said was, if you want to talk to me in private, and the subtitles were like, unter vier Augen, as in under 4 eyes, which I thought was interesting. I was like, so there must be a saying in German that unter vier Augen, under 4 eyes, meaning I have 2 eyes, you have 2 eyes. So if you want to meet in private, under 4 eyes, we can discuss. It's kind of cool. And it's kind of cool that, like, it didn't tell me that, but I read it. I was like, okay. That's a funny way to say it. Yeah, so I was just thinking, I don't mind some of the ambiguity and the profundity, but it's got to lead somewhere. And I feel like this is a movie that if you think about it a lot, I don't think it leads that far. So yeah, like I said, the visuals are really cool, the special effects. So just take it, some of the stuff with when they're walking around the outside of the room, that's very cool, because I think that's ahead of its time. I think a lot of people still today don't understand that concept of in gravity there's no, in space there isn't really any gravity, so you need to spin it to create artificial gravity, like a centrifugal force. It's like an apparent force that you feel. Like, many people understand that, but many don't. And thinking back to 1968, I'd say most people were oblivious to that, because it was only over time and with technology, and like probably most people now have seen some footage of someone either free falling or being in a spaceship and seeing how things just kind of float. You become familiar with it. But in 1968, I think that was quite new. One little comment near the start, there's a pen kind of floating, and it kind of looks cool, but I noticed its movement, it did sort of change direction a bit, so that was a giveaway of like, they didn't quite do that right. I liked how the women had the shoes, and there's a close-up, just so you can see, it's like, I forget what it's called, but sticky shoes, like they grip, or special grip shoes, so that they can walk. It's also funny. I think I know how most of the special effects were done. Just thinking about it, they have like a set that rotates so that the gravity appears to move, but they attach the camera to a part of the set, so the camera moves with the set. So from the point of view of the camera, everything's still, but people can walk around the walls. But it seemed to rotate very slowly, so you see a woman kind of stepping, she's doing it. If she had grip shoes, she would just be able to quickly grip, but it works. See, those parts I don't mind if they're slow. It's mainly a bit later with the like dragging on forever. With the howl, I used to think maybe it was more profound, but now I think it's kind of just, okay, the computer's now turned against you. It's kind of messed up, but I also kind of like how Hal, once he gets back in, he's like, Hal, I made some mistakes. I mean, Dave, I made some mistakes, and maybe I didn't make the best decision. Think about what you're doing. Maybe take a nap and think it through. And Dave is like not listening to anybody. It's like, you tried to kill me, man. You killed my friend. I'm pretty sure the friend gets killed. It's interesting, that close-up of Hal at that point. Just a little light. It's kind of comical, giving this energy and personality, just like a little light just sitting there. But yeah, like Harry's just not backing down. Like, no, you screwed me over. You're done. You're off. And it is kind of messed up the way Hal kills the other people. So again, I don't mind if a lot of it is not slow, but takes its time. That's fine. It's that later, it's overall it stretches too much. I would have liked more content, more mystery, more. Let me just maybe end with this. I don't like minimalism as its own artistic thing. The best movies have lots of things going on and combine them really well. The Dark Knight is a good example, where it's an action, it's a robots, it's, in terms of action, it's got like chase scenes, fighting scenes, it's a drama, it's got, we see the side from lawyer point of view, from police, in terms of Batman, a vigilante. You see the organized crime side of things. You've got this eccentric villain, the Joker. We get to see Harvey Dent turns into Two-Face. So we see all these different, it's got so many layers. It's got a lot going on, and I think it's got no flab though. It's got nothing that's just there to fill in. It's very streamlined, but that's what I think a great movie should have, is lots of stuff going on that adds to the movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey seems to just sometimes be minimal, like literally a black screen or just the same shot going on for ages. I would have preferred, I liked the shots, have more of them and have them be a little shorter. And have more of something to say. Ambiguity is not that great, okay? Not when it's to this extreme. So for me, I'd give it maybe an 8, maybe a 9 out of 10. If someone could explain it and I was convinced, like, wow, now I get it, the whole thing makes sense, maybe a 10 out of 10, but I don't think so. It has some weaknesses. It's not a masterpiece. It's not, maybe it is in some other ways, but I think it could be cut down maybe to an hour. If it was cut down to an hour and a half, I think because even then it would still feel like it's long and slow, but that it at least gets to certain points and then ends, and it's just this abrupt, whoa, like that movie was crazy. It just kind of doesn't explain everything. But when it's 2.5 hours, it becomes a bit more like, you're here to stay and you're being tortured by me, and you get the idea, it's really cool, and it's going to drag on. It is a weakness. Anyway, alright, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Bye.